probably about the middle of November here.
Can you believe that?
And
It's right before Thanksgiving. My gosh.
And you know what? We've had warm weather up till a week ago, now it's been snowing. So,
instead of 63, it's like 36 now.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of stuck inside, and you're stuck inside with us listening to this and watching this or whatever you're doing. And we're getting near the holidays, but with the holidays, we have host Rick Guerrera and host Larry Ward joining us. I'm Greg Roten, and we are trying to wrap up. Unfortunately, we're going to start putting those things away if you haven't already. But there are some steps to take to put cars and motorcycles, your tractors, anything mechanical away to prep them for the winter. And we brought in Carl Slagle, the all-knowing Carl Slagle that knows all about this stuff of what we need to have answered for us. So, Rick, why don't you start introduce Carl and start asking some questions, because
Carl and I have been buddies for a good many years. We met when we were doing radio at WKBN and the old building. Yeah, and
that was 33 years ago, Rick.
Yeah, I remember that. He was really fresh back then. Now he's like a real pro now.
Larry, you were there about 1 or 2 years, something like that.
21.
21. So, Carl, what's the name of your show, and what time can we hear it?
Well, it's Car Care on 570 WKBN every Saturday morning from 8 to 10. I have a partner by the name of Jim Gehagen. He and I have been together for quite some years now. I've been there for 33 doing it, and Jim's been there for about 25 to 30 years also. So it's been a great run. I've enjoyed it. Enjoy the people in this area. It's been a tremendous experience in my life, and I'm very happy to do it. I never had any radio experience or TV experience or anything like that before, and just kind of fell into it, and I really enjoyed it. It's been a great ride.
Good. You do a good job. I listen to you all the time.
Yeah. Thank you.
We got a lot of questions for you today, Carl. Okay, with the
I'll try to give you the answers.
Okay, you better give us the answers. We heard you know everything, so about all that stuff.
That's gone a little too far, right?
All right, who wants to start with Carl?
I'll try.
All right.
What would you like to start with?
Okay, how about the winter months, Carl? Let's start with our cars. Okay, what should people know about their cars in this winter months period coming up? What should they do? What shouldn't they do?
There's quite a few things we need to do to get prepared for winter in our area here, especially in our area. A lot of things, especially the northern half where we get snow and bad weather. First thing that we always say on the radio station that you need to maintain your car, and maintenance is the key to everything. The key to longevity, the key to it lasting you a good lifetime and not having any problems. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure the oil is changed, all the filters are changed in the engine, the air filter, the fuel filter, things of that nature. One thing that's greatly forgotten in our area is the cabin filter. Not all cars have cabin filters or pickup trucks, but also you need to take a look at that cabin filter, because in the wintertime we're going to have our windows up, and we're going to have same air circulating all the time. So if you've got a bad cabin filter in your vehicle, airflow, like the heater flow, the warmth coming off, if you have that experience, then chances are you've got a bad or a plugged up cabin filter.
How often should you change those, Carl?
Big time maintenance on the battery. You mean the cabin filter?
Yes.
The cabin filter probably ought to be changed. I would go by the factory's recommendation. I like to change mine at least once a year, though. Simply because if most cars have air conditioning, and it blows that moisture through that filter. And when it blows that moisture through that filter, you're going to get all kinds of contamination in the filter. So I like to change at least once a year. They're about $20, and you can change yourself. If you look at your owner's manual, it may give you instructions on how to do that, or go to YouTube and you can find out.
Yeah,
some are real easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a quick story on that one. Go ahead, Larry. Larry,
when you think of the pandemic that happened in 20 and part of 21, I'm thinking changing your cabin filter is probably a smart thing to do, just from a health standpoint. Any of the particulates that might have been trapped in that filter, good time to get rid of it, especially with the windows down. Yeah, I mean, with the windows up in wintertime and that cabin is recirculating a lot of the same air. I think that's a great starting point for winter maintenance, Carl.
Yeah, I know I change mine at least once a year, and I mean, it makes a great difference. The other thing I would allude to next would be average battery, new battery will last maybe 4 to 5 years. Some of the indications that you may be getting low battery is when you start your vehicle now, which is a pretty good indication if your gauges are a little sluggish moving, if your car a little sluggish starting, that may be an indication that the battery's starting to go. And when you buy your battery, I always recommend if you can get a larger cold cranking ampere battery to do that, because it turns the car over a little faster and it allows it to start a little easier in the wintertime. In wintertime, you can lose at 0 degrees, you lose probably half the cranking power of your battery. So you need to keep that in mind that if the battery's not up to par, you may have a problem starting it. And a lot of times now, you don't know where the battery's located. It could be underneath the back seat. It could be in the trunk. It could be underneath the hood. So it's not an easy thing to find anymore. The battery you don't just pop the hood, battery sticks right out at you anymore. It could be in a number of places. So try to find out where the battery's at in your car. So
any battery you recommend?
There's really no brand that I mean, I'm an old GM guy, so I'm like a Delco type guy, But there are interstates out there. There are plenty of battery companies out there that sell really good batteries. So I would get a good quality battery. I would never buy the cheapest battery. I always get a good quality battery, because batteries in the summer are as essential as they are in the winter. So
sometimes they don't give you a warning either. They just
you're
die on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, all you get's a click, and sometimes you don't even get that.
Just a reminder, when it does get cold, your car is going to crank over a little bit slower when you first start in the morning, because fluids are cold. Your battery is down on that cold cranking amps, and it is going to start a little, it's going to crank a little bit slower. But yeah, when it's warmed up, it shouldn't do that, should it, Carl?
Right. No, it shouldn't do that at all. And you're right. The cranking power when it gets cold is a lot less because of the fluids. But we've eliminated a lot of that because we're starting to use a lot of synthetic oils in it now. So which is a little easier for us to turn over.
Yeah.
So that has helped the problem.
They last a little longer too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question here, Carl. So throw it out there to the public there. On these new cars, okay, I've heard this before, that if your buddy needs a jump, okay, and you have a newer car, is it a good idea to jump them off your car? I heard it's not, because it can screw up a lot of stuff.
Well, you need to make sure you're jumping from the right spot.
Okay.
I mean, you can't, like I said before, batteries are sometimes hidden now, so you can't get off the battery. There should be, on most cars, there are a power spot that you can find. It's like a big bolt or something that should have a red cap on top of it. And that's another thing you might want to carry, is a set of jumper cables in your car too.
Right.
But anyhow, if you read the owner's manual, it will tell you where you can jump the car if you cannot jump the car. And I would highly recommend that you read that manual, because some cars, you're right, you cannot jump. If you backfeed that car, you could do some extensive damage to some of the computer systems in the vehicles now.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Somebody did that, and they jumped their neighbor. Next thing you know, he had all kind of problems. It was
certainly, yes.
Yeah, on these some of the newer cars. So.
Now, another thing is that I wanted to touch on the cabin filters a lot. I'm guilty as anybody for letting them sit in there and going a couple years, 3 years without changing them. But, I've had people send me pictures of, I just changed my cabin filter, and they turn it over and it's full of mold spores. Mold is, from all the moisture, and that'll get you. So if you start your car up in the morning, you get that first burst of air and it smells funny. guaranteed your cabin filter's got mold, mildew, all sorts of stuff trapped in it. And that's, when it's moist in that morning dew or air or anything like that, when it's warm out, yeah, you better change that cabin filter.
Exactly. You're exactly right. And you're right. The odor that comes from that is a good indication. And you'll get that in the summertime also, because don't forget, your air conditioning system creates a little bit of a moisture. You can see that running out from underneath your car. Well, if you stop and think about that, that entire heating system and cooling system in the car blows through that system. So it blows through that air filter before it gets to you. So It's a good idea, a very good idea.
Yeah. Yep. And some of them reasons change. And, I'll say I had a 2001 Cadillac Seville STS, and I know that was an afterthought, because when I had to change it, it wasn't as easy as some of these. You pop up the hood. That thing was buried up underneath that dashboard, and you had to take a whole bottom of it off. And I finally got so aggravated, I just took the dang filter out and left it out. It was like, I'm selling the car anyway. I don't even want to deal with it again. I'm like, there is no way. There's no way. You go on YouTube, I'm like, I can't believe I have to tear the whole bottom of this dash out to get a stupid filter out. Who designed this?
It's a Cadillac.
Yeah,
it's a Cadillac. Some of the Cadillacs, you got to tear the whole front bumper off to replace a light bulb.
Yeah, sounds like my BMW. Yeah, same thing. So a lot of those cars are like that. But
right, exactly, they are.
Okay, Carl. How about we're talking about filters? How about air filters, engine filters? How often
definitely
do you change those? Well,
yeah, as I alluded to that before, the oil filter and the air filter. When you get your oil changed, most places will check the air filter for you. Or if you're changing it yourself, you should check the air filter. Now, most of those are fairly easy to check. They're out in the open, accessible. Sometimes you need a screwdriver, sometimes you don't. But most of them just have clamps or wing nuts that screw down on top of the air filter. But you certainly need to check that too. That's gonna make sure that you have sufficient airflow to the injection system or to the intake system. The oil filter, obviously, you change it. You change it every time you get the oil changed. And the one thing that a lot of people don't change a lot is the fuel filter. I probably change or recommend the fuel filter about every 30,000 miles.
Okay.
Get that changed also.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I want to jump in here real quick. I got a question for you. There's a lot. This applies to motorcycles. This applies to anything with an engine. Can-end filters with the sprayable foam.
What I was gonna say,
you hear stories on that, and you never know what to believe, what to not believe. You have your paper filters that you normally get from the factory. You got your K&N the mesh filters, and you spray the oil on it. I've heard they can clog up your mass airflow sensor, intake, anything like that. And I'm like, okay, I've never had the problem with it because I run them as well just to save a couple bucks in the long run. I just wash them out, respray them with the oil, and they're fine. But I'm also one that keeps an eye on that too. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you're exactly right. That's what you need to do, Greg. I've heard pros and cons along with you about it can do some damage to some of the other components in the system. I had a K&N oil air filter on my motorhome. I didn't have a problem with it. But then I've talked to other people that have had problems, like you said. If it plugs it up, it could play havoc with the mass airflow sensor, and you don't want that to happen. So, although K&N's a good, reputable company, I feel the same way you do. You need to keep an eye on that kind of stuff. If you're going to go to the aftermarket and use that, you need to keep an eye on it. The other thought on that area is that that they designed this car to have an air intake that's sufficient to run the car at its most efficient process. So when you start messing with airflow, especially in the newer engines, you're taking a chance on it, because that airflow, the mass airflow, picks everything up and brings it and changes everything. I mean, you've got to make sure that it doesn't get clogged up. I mean, that kind of scares me too when you put oil in it, and that oil is going to grab more particles coming through the air than anything else, because it's thicker. Okay, so to me, I don't know. There's pros and cons on that. If you've used it and you're okay with it and you don't have any problems, I guess it's okay. But I tend to go with the standard air filter. Whatever my dealer calls for, whatever my manufacturer calls for is what I like to use.
Okay. Yeah, Larry.
Larry, go ahead.
I've gone to get him. He's sitting there. I'm like, I got to get him.
Hey, Carl, let's talk about a little bit about tires here. How often should you check your tires in the winter and in the summer? Is it a big difference?
Well, always, no matter whether it's winter or summer, check your tire pressure when it's cold.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets down, well, weather gets around 40 degrees, 30 degrees, for every I think 10 degrees, you lose 1 pound of air pressure in your tires. So keep that into consideration. If you're a maintenance guy or a maintenance gal that's out there and constantly checking your tires or looking at your tire pressure monitor system, it's going to change in the wintertime. It could get to the point where it could turn the light on for the tire pressure monitor system. I recommend that you drive it, check the air pressure and look at the air pressure. It'll tell most of them tell you what the air pressure is. And obviously, if it's too low, if you look at the tire itself, you'll be able to know if it's drivable or not by looking at the bottom of the tire, obviously where it's sitting on the ground. But a lot of times in the wintertime, it'll turn that tire pressure monitor system on. And by the time you drive it a few miles, it should turn it back off, because the more you drive the car, the warmer the tires get, the more the air pressure gets in it. But always make sure you check your tires when it's cold.
Yep.
How about the gas they put? Go ahead, Larry.
A lot of these newer rims too, Carl, when you go and get your tires changed for the first time, then as we start to get into real cold temperatures, like in the 30s, you find out that your tire pressure monitor is indicating one or more tires are going low. And I've been told by a pretty good expert, that TJ Tennant, not to take the tire off and not to put a coating on the inside of the rim. And I forgot why he said that isn't the right thing to do, but I wondered what your thoughts are. These rims seem to be porous.
That's a good question.
Beads aren't or something.
A lot of tire shops have gone, and we've kind of gotten away from it now, because seemed like we went through a period of time where the wheels were porous, like you said, and we used nitrogen in. And the nitrogen seemed to resolve that problem to a certain extent. Obviously, the nitrogen must be heavier than regular air, I'm assuming, to take up that space on the wheels. Well, it was mostly aluminum wheels that occurred in, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think
the molecules are bigger in nitrogen than oxygen.
Larry, were you talking about the bead sealer on the outside? Is that what you're talking about?
Like when you put new tires on, say your magnesium wheels or factory mag wheels, and then you go out and you find out, like a couple of days, a week later, your tire pressure monitor is indicating one or more tires are now lost air. And that's because for whatever reason, they're not either sealing good the bead against the rim, or the rim is porous, or the rim had some surface material that needed to be ground off. I noticed that a lot of guys that do a lot of tires, like I was down at that Rogers flea market, and they don't even hesitate. As soon as they pull the tire off, out come the grinders, grinding wheels. They grind the tires, and they paint the inside of the rim where the beads hook in. They paint it with this black like stuff, and supposedly that works. But TJ told us that probably wasn't.
I'm just as guilty of that. My thought, I have to say this. I jumped in with that. We live in Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, where you have salt and you have rust and you have that corrosion digging into the rim. I know TJ is totally against that bead sealer. It's a black bead sealer you put on the outside, which I know he hates it, and he says you're not supposed to use it. But I'm just as guilty of using it when I'm mounting tires, because, of the corrosion aspects of it. We got salt digging in the winter, and that just, to me, it gives them more assurance that it's going to seal and stay seated on there. And TJ'd probably kill me for saying that, but I think, I don't know what, Carl, your thoughts on that one.
Right.
Well, I would think if it was going to do any harm, it may contaminate the tire pressure monitor. that's inside.
Okay.
That may be what he's concerned with. The chemical, I don't know if the chemical reaction of that sealant, and I know what you've been talking about, the black sealant, but I'm not sure whether the chemical reaction to that would do anything to the tire pressure monitor. It could very well do that. And if it does, obviously tire pressure monitors are not cheap. They're like 40, 50, $60,
Yeah.
plus the time of tearing it down and putting them on. So you're going to have a little bit of money involved in that. So yeah, I mean, if he recommends not using it, then there's got to be a reason behind it. And I would think that's the only thing I can think of, if there's a chemical reaction to the tire pressure monitor itself.
Okay. I got a quick question for you. As far as
Sure.
the TPMS systems, the tire pressure monitoring systems, when you go if you've got a new set of tires and, you wear them out, you go get a brand new set. Do you recommend replacing the TPMS sensors as well every time you put the tires in? Because I know those batteries run bad or to go bad, and there is no way to change a battery in those TPMS systems.
Right.
You got that right.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. You know what? I'm kind of frugal when it comes to that. If I get new tires put on it, okay, I'm good to go. And I've put new tires on my truck, and my thinking is this way: if one of them's going to go bad, okay, then I'll take the tire back off and change it. But I'm not going to spend $160. 4 times 4 is $160. For tire pressure monitors when I don't need them.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I'm kind of frugal that way. I don't change them unless I have to.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what your thoughts were on that because I'm the same way. I don't use them, period. Because I always checking tires. I guess I'm a little old fuddy-duddy old school guy thinking that way. But
I kind of like the new tire pressure monitors. I mean, when I start my truck up, it shows me all 4 tires and what the pressure is. Now, some cars won't show you what pressure of all 4 tires. They'll tell you if you got one low. So you got to guess by golly on that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you need to watch out when you go have your tires changed or have your tires rotated. How does that computer know that you've changed it unless it's reprogrammed? So you might want to keep that in mind. I mean,
that's what happened to me.
If you have a system that say you rotate your tires and it says the left rear is low and it's actually a right front, you're putting here the wrong tire.
I blew out a tire a couple of weeks ago and it said it was the left rear. And I go, no, I just hit the right rear, Yeah. So I got my tire gauge out and I checked it. And, how do they fix that, Carl?
Well, you can plug it into a scanner and reset it. So
they have to do it then.
Yes, they have to do it at the tire shop. Most tire shops are capable of doing that now.
Okay.
I got a quick question for you, and this might open up a whole can of worms and a whole bunch of questions and no answers for this. Oil, for the old school engines, they started getting rid of the zinc, the phosphate, all this stuff. And, they started phasing out mid-2000s, late 2000s. And the people that have the flat tappet motors, motorcycles, small block Chevys, Fords, Chryslers, anything like that, they need zinc. Now, your thoughts on that? Because there's some people that say, oh, you don't need that. You're fine. There's other people that say, you better add a zinc additive. Are there any oils anymore that are produced that have still enough zinc other than specialty oils? Oh, I think I stumped it.
No.
There are oils.
There are special oils for special, for engines. What you're talking about. I mean,
you can't go get your Valvoline or anymore.
No. Wait. If I could just jump in because that's exactly what I use in my Corvette, and that's exactly what I use in the Harley. And I tell you that you can go to Advanced Auto Parts. You can buy Valvoline 20, 50, or 50 weight, and it'll say right at the very top of the bottle, high zinc content. You also can go to like Walmart. And Castrol has a regular petroleum-based oil. It's in a white bottle, red labels, and it says high zinc content for flat tappet cams. Blah, blah, blah. And you can just buy it. It's like $6.95 a quart. So I thought it's a bargain.
Yeah. So what happens if you don't add zinc to it then? It just screws up everything?
You won't have a camshaft.
Eventually.
Yeah, you're
But
gonna
did you have any
camshaft.
experience on that, Larry?
Yeah, you could, if you don't run the right oil and the right viscosity for your application, especially if you've got a solid lifter cam or a flat tappet cam like a lot of the Chevys had earlier on, and Carl would attest to this more than I, where you have the
Right.
LT motors that would have roller rockers and stuff like that. That's a little bit different application. That's more of a shear thing than anything else. But yeah, when I raced with my dad many years ago, when we raced small block Chevys, and we ran 3030 Duntoff cams and 097 cams, they were all flat tappet, solid lifter cams, and
Sure.
you had to use the appropriate oil, and you change it a lot during the season. So.
Yep. I just wanted thoughts on that because there's always zinc additives out there that you can buy in a bottle, and some people say don't mix them with the oil. Your oil is formulated with the zinc additives already in it. Some people say add it; it'll mix right in. So,
well, I think sorry, Carl. I think where you get into trouble is all these newfangled oils with the Dex Ox 2 or whatever that stuff is. That high mileage, not high mileage, but high gas mileage oil versus higher mileage oil. But Carl, go ahead. I'm sorry to jump in.
No, you're fine. No, that's perfect. I mean, I was going to say something about that too. I use dextrose in my truck, which they claim that the engine I have in my truck with they claim it uses oil. I haven't used a drop of oil in my engine. And that's what I was going to say to you, Greg. There are so many different opinions when it comes to oil that it's just unbelievable. You could talk to me, you could talk to Larry, and you could talk to 5 other people, and they'll all have different opinions of what oil to use.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many oils on the market right now that it's just unbelievable. I've even gone to synthetic for my 78 Malibu, my Chevelle.
Okay.
That's 350 in that. So, and I haven't had a problem with it. But there again, I'm only driving at 1,000 miles a year. So
but I understand that they've improved the synthetics. Before, when they first came out with the synthetics, they always said it's going to leak because the molecules are smaller and they're going to leak out of your old seal. They've improved that from what I understand. And again, I could be wrong. They've improved that formula where it does not matter anymore. You don't need the dinosaur oil anymore in the old.
You're right. You're exactly right.
Okay.
I've been using synthetic in my vehicles now for quite some time. Even in my wife's Jeep, I use it. So,
hey Carl, how far do you?
I'm trying to get the new age.
Yeah.
What's that?
How far do you recommend going on that full synthetic oil? How many miles?
There you go. There's another.
There you go. Here's another opinion on this thing, and somebody else will give you a different opinion. I go 3,000 to 4,000 miles with my synthetic oil. I'm still from the old school, which says you got to change well over 3,000 miles or 4,000 miles. Okay. A lot of people can go 7,000. Depends on your driving habits. If you're out on the road, if you're driving back and forth, on the freeway and driving 50 or 60 miles a day, I say you could probably extend that service to 5,000 to 6,000 miles, maybe even 7,000. But if you're driving around town where the car doesn't get a chance to warm up and burn everything out of it, then I'm at the old school again. I'm at 3,000 miles.
Yep. Let me add to that too. If you're going off-roading in a truck with dusty conditions, that changes the whole game of oil changes frequently. I mean, a couple thousand miles. Air filters, there you go. Cabin filters, you're going to get them dirtier. Even in mud, you're going mudding off there. You want to change that stuff. High stress on the motor, you definitely want to change it more. In town driving.
Larry will tell you that same thing on his off-road motorcycle.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he changes oil and changes air filters quite frequently. So
yeah,
a lot depends on your driving conditions. Like I said,
Yeah, I usually change my oil around 7,500 miles all the time with the full synthetic. So I never had any problem with it. But my other BMW, my 2015 BMW, said I can go 10,000 miles on full synthetic. So I never pushed it that far, but
there's where you get in the debate, Rick. Yeah.
Carl,
is it cheap insurance?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
I'd like to talk about oil filters. Besides the raging oil debates, there's also an oil filter debate. And, for the longest time, a lot of people told me that don't use Fram filters because they have this paper thing that comes apart, could get in through the oil. And then I read a big, long study on the internet, and a guy actually cut them open and showed some of the better filters, and then the Fram filter, and the older Fram filters were actually better than the OEM stuff based on material.
I think I saw that same video, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting. I am a proponent. If you can find the filters that have the shutoff valve that doesn't allow the oil to come back out, I'm a big proponent of that.
Mhm.
I tell you the truth, Larry. I've seen. I did the experiment myself. I cut a Wix filter apart.
Okay.
If you've ever used a Wix filter, I mean,
use them.
I think
all the time. I use them.
Yep.
I think they're some of the best on the market.
Yes.
And I didn't know it until just a few years ago that Wix makes Napa's filters too. So they're gold filters. So
Right.
I'm kind of partial to that. I've seen what they can do, and although I've never had a problem with a Fram or an AC filter or a Fomoco filter, so an Autolite filter.
Let me give you,
So how many filters you ever seen blow out? Really? I mean, how many of you have seen?
Here,
I've never seen one.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
You have?
Okay, here's it. I got it. I got it. It wasn't a canister filter. It was just an element filter. And it was, again, I'm not going to name names, Fram. I'm not going to name names. I'm sorry. I learned my lesson the hard way when I had one in one of my cars, and it completely blew out the side of the paper part of the filter from the oil pressure. It just, I don't know, there must have been a defect in the filter, but there was just a pile, and it went through the motor. Thank God it was just that cardboard paper stuff, because I pulled it up.
That's all.
Yeah,
Something
I'm like,
had to plug up.
yeah, it
Because
was
most
weird.
filters-
And I'm like, and then I was like, I blame Fram because I've been seeing the same things, about the Fram filters and the cheaper stuff. But I went to Wix, and, I started using Wix filters, and the K&N are pretty good too.
Oh, sure.
And,
But
And-
at Wix, I get them locally at a local shop, and I run them on my Harley, and I run them on the Ford pickup. I just, have seen those studies, had people cut them open. One time when we were all running BMWs for long distance, I mean, we do 25, 30,000 miles in 8 months, and you're changing oil a lot, and you're changing tires a lot. And I'll tell you, we did a couple of big oil studies where we sent the oil out to a chemical company or chemist, and he would evaluate the oil and tell you about, magnesium, the zinc, the phosphate, stuff like that, how the oil's holding up or not holding up, what temperatures are running. And so it was very, very interesting. But back then, we had done some filter studies as well, and took a hacksaw and or a bandsaw, and we cut them open and we could look at them. I'm not so sure we were smart enough to figure out what we were looking at, but you could tell which ones were dirtier. But I'll tell you what, all modern filters have an anti-drain back valve.
Thank God.
That is in case, if something should plug up, it'll immediately bypass the filter, which, is not a good thing. But in relation to something exploding like the filter, and then you're starting to lose oil pressure like immediately, that's very bad. So, I'm like, I'm like Carl, though. I've never had a problem with an AC Delco filter in my Corvette. So, but I will tell you this, that what's been disappointing me over the last couple of years, and it's just the way of the world, I specifically ordered an AC Delco part, and I can't remember what part it was, but it was something stupid. And it had a nice AC Delco box, and as soon as I opened it up, it was like a Russia doll. There's a white box nestled inside that. I pulled it out, and it was made in China. But I paid like it was an AC. Yeah, it was like you paid, though, the same price. That's
Check the vendor on that one. Yeah.
Well, you're exactly right, Larry. When I was working at the dealership, we had the same thing go on. Okay, they would come in and sell the parts department because they bought a lot of filters at one time, and it's like, okay, we can lower the cost of our oil changes by putting this filter on. It's an AC Delco, but you look at it was made in China.
Okay.
It's a story of the world anymore. Everything's made abroad that we buy.
That's probably why we don't have any more information on Wuhan lab and Fauci and all the rest of them, you know.
It's funny. I always remember the story when I was growing up. Worldwide Auto Parts, there was a big chain.
Oh, yeah.
They started getting the 1,000,000-mile warranty, but they got Chinese-made parts, but they had the 1,000,000-mile warranty. So what put them out of business? People, the Chinese and the Japanese and all the foreign-made parts. What does your local parts store carry now? All the stuff made in Japan and China, and that's where you get your parts from. Well, so they put this company out of business when these companies are doing the same thing now. So,
but you know what, Greg? People in Youngstown, if it's free, it's for me. People do not want to pay what it costs to have an American-made product. Now, me, I'll tell you what, I will. If I know that it's American-made and I know that it's as good or better, but what are you going to do? Supposedly, the parts that you're getting from Malaysia, Portugal, China, and that meet or exceed OEM because the manufacturer's backing them up.
I get it. And some of them say assembled in America, but what the parts in it, China, that's the funny part about it.
Yeah, the Harley, it's assembled in America.
Yeah, woo, I assembled it too,
I'm probably going to get hate mail coming.
Yeah, I know. We're going to get comments on that, but it's the truth. I mean, this is all stuff that comes up.
Well, you look at the forks, you look at all of the stuff. I think the only thing that it's probably made is in the York plant is maybe the motor, in the frame. I think the electronics are sourced, the suspension sourced, and you do that to keep the price of the motorcycle within reach. But if you guys have seen motorcycles, I'm probably never going to get a new bike. I mean, I bought that new Himalayan off of Jimmy up at Motozilli last year and had just great time, had 5-6 bikes off of Motozilli. But as far as going out and buying, say, a new BMW or a new Harley, I got to tell you, those costs. I, in 1973, built this house for $31,800. That's about $2,000 more than what a brand new Harley or BMW or Ducati would cost now. And so for me, I remember that, and I just don't want to jump into that game,
Well, but Larry, your house is worth $300,000 now, though, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's worth about 140, 150. So, it's okay. I mean, but my wife looks at me when I start to talk like that, like, you're going before the house.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of oil, getting back to oil, when I grew up, we always had oil additives like STP and stuff like that. Do they still use that stuff?
Stuff's still on the market. Stuff is still on the market, and you know what? There's another controversy, Rick. Some people swear by it, some people don't. I have 2 friends that constantly they put Marvel Mystery Oil in everything, gasoline, oil, you name it.
Yeah, I see that.
And I mean, they swear by it. I mean, and these 2 old guys are 2 old farmers that have farm machinery, have trucks, have motorcycles. I mean, Harleys and all the whole 9 yards, and they use it in everything. I think the oil industry puts enough additives to maintain what we need to do to lubricate properly the internal combustion engine. But there again, I'm not opposed to using a little bit of additive too to help that along. That's a fine line right there, Rick. It really is. It used to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, let me jump in. Let me jump in real quick because you got to think about when the oil additives came out. Back in way back when the oils were terrible.
Terrible.
The gasoline was awful. It was full. So they had to have, you had to have additives to at least extend your oil life in that. Now we've got really clean fuel with detergents already built in the fuel. These cars run incredibly clean. They're run real clean. They have better oils. So we might not need as many additives anymore, if any. Because we've got better fuel and better oil and cleaner running motors now with fuel injection.
Also, one other thing that I might point out, and then Rick jump in, the machining tolerances, with everything being robotic now, there's a lot more closer machining tolerances. We now have everything that's computer controlled, not carburetor controlled. So I think you're right. Back then, winds friction proofing, bar doll.
Yeah, winds. I forgot about that.
You name all that.
Andy Granatelli, SGP,
Yeah, those are big,
that was
big
the biggie.
sellers,
Yeah.
Big sellers.
Do you remember
then.
40, 50 years ago, Slick 50?
Oh, that was back in the 80s when that came out. Because I remember that was the big thing. Oh,
That
it
was
bonds to your metal. And
Oh my
okay.
God.
It was a quart. It was like $40 a quart or something. It was quite a bit.
You still buy it. It's like
Back then.
$8 a quart now.
You can buy
Back
it.
then, I
Yes, you
advocated on the show that you use Slick 50. I believe all it is graphite. I'm pretty sure that's all it was, which
Yeah, but
graphite is a great lubricant. Okay.
Yeah.
You use graphite on everything.
Oh, yeah. It's got a little bit of zinc in there as well. And you're
Sure.
good to go. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But I have to say something. I don't know if I mentioned this before. I always reading up. Somebody had a 280ZX they bought years ago, and it had a canister set up for a remote oil filter for a roll of toilet paper.
Oh.
Do you remember that in the
Yeah,
50s,
yeah.
60s,
I've seen that,
70s? Yeah, because the oil filters were so crappy, you could actually use a roll of toilet paper, put it in there as an oil filter, and they say it worked great.
It was crappy, huh?
Yeah.
I like how you use that. Yeah.
Oh, that was.
I
pretty
remember
good,
my grandfather and my father telling me that back way when that they used to use a roll of toilet paper because they didn't have the money to buy a filter. They'd use a roll of toilet paper for the filter.
Wow.
So I know that. Why wouldn't it work? I mean, it's in a canister. What's it going to do?
Yeah, it cleans
Well,
everything
go anywhere.
else. It might as well clean your oil, right?
Hey, Carl,
That's
if
right.
you, if you remember those 55 and 56 Chevys with the 265 all the way up to 283s, do you remember the old oil bath air cleaner they had on them?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah, you had
Those
more oil in the
things
bottom.
actually were very efficient, but
Yes, they were.
also- yeah, but
I remember
they weren't
those.
high performance, but they were very efficient.
How do
Yes,
those
they
work anyway? I know you got a bath of oil in there, but how's that work?
My Beetles have those. They still have
Oh,
them. I
do
still
they?
have I still have the boil bath on my 61, and
How
it
does that
works.
work, though?
Carl, do you want to explain it, or do you want me to do it?
Go right ahead.
All right. Basically, what it does, it's got a, it's like a can, like a kind of a pot.
Canister.
It holds the oil,
Uh-huh.
and when the air hits the one of the metal pieces, it flows through, but it drops the dirt particles into the oil, so it traps them down. It kind of swoops down through and cleans up the oil. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that oil does get dirty, and I mean, every year I change that. I'll change the oil in the Beetle. I'll dump the oil bath out, and it's dirty.
You need a certain type of oil, or any oil will do?
I just throw whatever I
That
put
was
in the
30
car.
weight.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't think there was any specific type that I can recall anyhow.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
dirty weight. But those old bath.
Whatever I put in the car. Yeah, whatever I put in the car, I put in the air bath.
Yep.
Yeah, they were metal. You're right. You're right, Greg, because the 55 and 56 were metal inside that canister thing.
Yeah.
You
Right.
pulled that out, you cleaned it with kerosene.
Yeah. It's like a wire. It's like a mesh. Some of them are mesh,
Yeah.
and some of them are
Yeah.
like pinhole. But yeah, the worst part of that is when you're taking your air cleaner off, you dump the damn thing on your foot, and you got a shoe soaked, and you're every swear word
It's
in the book.
everywhere.
Why do I use this
Yeah.
stupid oil bath filter? Because I just dumped oil over my shoe. Yeah.
And the funny thing, those were only on, I believe, 2-barrel carburetors, not on the Rochester 4-barrels. But Carl, you'd know more about that than I. But
I think
that's
you're
what I
right, Larry. I
remember.
think they were. Yeah, I believe they're only on 2 barrels. I don't remember ever seeing one on a 4-barrel at all.
No.
I think
No,
you're
they-
right.
They
Yeah.
pulled too much air. The 4-barrels, you got a 2-barrel. It's pulling between 300 and 500 CFM of air. You got a 4-barrel that can go up to, 950, 850 CFM.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna suck oil. You're gonna suck oil through that with all that CFM of air. So they can't really use that in a long
Right.
ways.
You're right.
Let me go into gas now, Carl. Question for you on
Okay.
gas.
You have Taco
Wintertime,
Bell?
Okay. Huh?
Did you eat Taco Bell or something? Sorry. That was a terrible man joke, and I had to get that out.
Ice cream too. Lactose
Couldn't
intolerant.
let that go. Just cannot let that go.
No, it's always funny.
I'm an old guy, so it doesn't take much anymore.
It doesn't matter anymore, does it, Rick? Things just happen naturally now.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey, Carl, gas. How much should you have, and what should be your empty in the wintertime?
Your empty in the wintertime, in my opinion, should be half a tank. When it gets to half a tank, pardon me?
In the wintertime. Well, what's prevent?
Well, it doesn't prevent anything from happening. What it does is if it prevents you from getting in trouble if you get stuck in a snowdrift, or if you get stuck someplace out and you can't get help right away. I'd like to be on the safe side. So when it gets down to half a tank, if you get into a snowstorm, or say you're on the interstate and you have one of these 40-car pileups, how long are you going to sit there before you get your car off the interstate?
Yeah.
You know, so I just, yeah, exactly.
Then you run out of
Then
power.
you're really in trouble. Then you got to find a place to plug in a light pole somewhere. But let's just err on the safe side. That's all. The half a tank.
Well,
Hey, you know,
this brings up,
there's a lot of questions about that E85 gas. Should we use it?
If your car's equipped for it, yes. But I will tell you this: if it's equipped for flex fuel, I'm going to guarantee if you're using E85, your fuel economy is going to get down, guaranteed.
Really?
It's just it's
my Impalla's equipped for that. I never use it though.
Yeah, you'll watch you drop 10 miles a gallon with the E5. Yeah.
you know, I've got a good question for Carl, and it's something that I just did today. Now, sitting over in the shop that Corey rents, you know, we've got a bunch of different vehicles, but his Cadillac XLR and my Corvette. I just went over, looked at the gas gauge, and it's not quite 3/4 of a tank. And I put about 2 or 3, maybe 4 ounces of Startron.
Okay.
Well, no, so I like the Startron. I've gotten some better reports on that. But is there any thought, carbureted versus fuel injected, as to how much gas you should have in that tank during the winter for storage?
My opinion is this: I like to keep about 3/4. Now you're going to hear various different stories about this, but I like to keep 3/4 of a tank in it, and I'll tell you why, Larry. Even though you put a fuel stabilizer in it, in the springtime when I get that car out, I want to put fresh fuel in it, because you know as well as I do, even with fuel stabilizer in it, the fuel deteriorates. So I want to have enough room when I take it out in the summertime or in the springtime that I can put 5 or 6 or 7 gallons in with that old fuel and mix that.
Okay.
That's my opinion. And you're going to find many different opinions on that too, because some people say, well, if I fill it all the way, there's less area for condensation. Well, maybe not.
What about what was I going to say about the different types of fuel storage on it? Darn, I lost my track on that. But octane boost. That's what it was. What is your thoughts about octane boost? And do you think that by leaving the tank at 3/4 and then putting a bottle of octane boost, does that help stabilize the gas a little bit more? Because that stuff that we're getting now, unless you go get what do they call it, where it doesn't have any of that ethanol in it. You can get it at some of these, like Smith gas station or that Marathon.
Yeah, like the Circle K in Salem has it. The new Circle K. It has no ethanol in it. I don't. You know what, Larry? It's been my experience that I don't see much difference, to tell you the truth, in the octane booster. I've tried some octane booster, but I don't see where that's a benefit to anything.
Okay.
If you want to put higher octane fuel in it, you might want to do that. But there again, in the newer cars, it depends on the car you're talking about. If you're talking some of our old hot rods and stuff, probably would help it. But the new cars, it's not doing a bit of good. The computer controls it all. I mean, it's controlled by the computers, and that's all there is to it. So, when it comes to a newer car, I don't think it's going to. An older car like my old '78, Rick's old hot rod, your old hot rods, it might help, but I can't see anything else other than putting a fuel stabilizer in it. I don't think it's gonna do much good.
I have to follow that up as well, because I know a lot of my cars say premium fuel only, and I'm like, you know what? The computer controls the timing. The computer controls all that stuff. The amount of fuel that goes in. The computer will adjust the timing for the lower octane. So I'll be honest with you, I've thrown 87 in everything I've got, and all the newer cars that I've got with the computer control in that I've never seen a difference in gas mileage or anything. Now, again, you're going to get up for debate on that, and we'll probably get some emails on that. So you send them to Rick Guerrera at
take care of
1-800-EAT.
Oh.
Whoa.
Hey, Carl, here's one for you. A gas additive. You ever heard of? You probably heard of it. A lot of guys are using it. I was told to use it because my gas gauge was sticking. Seafoam. You familiar with Seafoam?
Absolutely, yes. As a matter of fact, I recommended it.
Yeah.
Seafoam for injector cleaners and things of that nature. Yes. I don't recommend it, every tank full, but maybe once every 3 months. There again, depends on your driving habits and how much you drive.
Okay. So that's good then. You like it then?
Yeah. I use that.
I do.
Go ahead, Carl. Sorry.
Yeah, I do use it. I use Seafoam, and I like it. I use some Lucas too. They have good products, and I think they work. For me to sit down and say, well, here, I took this injector out, it looked like this before I used Seafoam, and now it looks like this. I can't do that, but I can tell you this. If I don't have a problem with the vehicle after I use Seafoam in it, or it seems to run a little better, I'm happy with the product. I really am. And I think it does well.
Well, we ought to all put Red Bull in the tank next.
Hey, that works. I use
little Bardstown bourbon.
Yeah. I just got done fixing my daughter's 3-liter V6 Ford Escape. I had to rebuild most of the motor in it. But I'm trying to tell you what, I kind of, the tops of the pistons, when I had the heads off, were carboned up pretty good. And I just dumped some seafoam on each cylinder and let them soak overnight. Boy, crystal clear. I mean, that stuff took up all the carbon. So I was like, well, that must work. If you sprayed it, if you get it in a spray form in your intake and start throwing it through, it must really clean up those valves, seats, and everything.
I'll tell you, you know what's a good one too? And I did this on a Corvette that I had that was missing. And when you spray it, it's not as good as if you can atomize it. So a guy told me to pull off the vacuum hose that goes to the vacuum booster and feed the liquid right in through there with the high idle. And boy, that worked. That worked really well.
Oh, you get a nice big puff of
Larry, there's a
back too, huh?
Yeah,
Carl.
There's a company out there that I used to advertise on the show, and it's called Castle. It's a decarb. I still have that machine that you can hang on that and do exactly what you said. We used to pull the vacuum hose off the brake booster and run it down through the intake that way. And you would be amazed at the carbon that comes out of that. It actually cleans the valves off. It's a very good product, and I still have that machine that does that.
Old Castle products. They are good products.
Car used to push those all the time in the radio. Yeah.
Well, I got a question like you'd normally get on the car show. Just one quick question, Rick, because it's the Corvette I have is an 84 Z51, which has what a lot of people think are a notorious crossfire. To me, a crossfire is just like setting up a twin carb motorcycle. I've got the carb tune and all that. But one of the things that they told me to do when setting them up is block off something in the fuel and the fuel and throttle body intake. Mm-hmm. You know what that piece would be that you're blocking off? Some kind of air.
It's an air crossover tube.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
You know anything about that, Carl?
No, you know what? I really don't, Larry. I've never had the experience to play with one of those very much, and other than when they were brand new, when I worked at the dealership. But
I can tell you what that is.
Again. Okay.
Basically, a lot of the dual carbs with the manifolds run. If they're running separately, they're only metering what's on the one carb in each cylinder side. That crossover tube equalizes the balance between the carburetors. So if you block it off, and you're going to get into debate with this one as well. Some people say leave it connected and tune your carbs, and they'll balance each other out with that crossover tube for vacuum. Some people say cut it off and do each carb and set them each separately. Then let the unblock that tube, and it'll vacuum out and balance each side of the motor. So that's what that's for. And again, my proponent, I have always, when I've balanced those, I've I've blocked that tube off, balanced each side, of the carburetor or whatever separately, and then unbalance the tube and let the vacuum flow. That's what that's for.
I know we're running out of time right now. I just want to get 2 quick questions in here, okay?
Okay.
This is an old school question, okay? Is it fine to fill up when a tanker truck is at the gas station?
The old question. Bring up all the crap from the bottom of the tanks.
That's a good
Yeah. I think they got filters enough to take care of that in the pumps and in the tanks, Rick.
Old days.
I wouldn't be afraid of it. Yeah.
That's what I figured. That's an old school question.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah.
I went
Good
to
one.
a mechanic, big time mechanic. He's like 80-some years old. He said, never fill up. And, he told me that not long ago. And I go, I don't think that really.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Remember,
cool.
if you look up at the gas pumps and you see the filters up there, on top, they never had those before, remember? So they don't filter them out too well.
Okay.
Yeah, they filter them out pretty good now.
Okay, here's another question for you, Carl, before I give up the ring on there. Are all gases different, like the bland or the blends, like Sunoco and Texaco? Are they all different or are they all the same?
I'm thinking there's some minor differences between the fuel companies. I'm sure there are between the additives and whatever they put in it. I'm sure there's some minor differences, but nothing that you would notice probably when you're using it in your car.
Mm-hmm. So like Circle K and Sohio, those brands are about basically the same. Do they get it at the same place?
Well, there again, I've had people who drive tanker trucks tell me I pour the same gas in Circle K as I do in Walmart. Okay,
Yeah.
They drive tankers and if they're driving a tanker, they know where they're pouring the gas. So there's only so many refineries in the area.
And it depends on, I guess, how much detergents they put in it or what blend of detergents they put in the fuel.
I would think that would be the only difference. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
Yeah, Larry, I kind of walked on.
That BP gas, I've always been told that the major ones, the Sunocos, the BPs, back then the Atlantic Richfields, try and stay with the standard bigger companies versus less, because I have been told that some of the gas that it doesn't, like, for instance, BP has this thing called Invigorate. If your fuel line freezes, they'll pay the repair if you're running BP gas with that Invigorate. Whereas if you go and there isn't any Circle K's around here, but if you go to some what I would consider more of an off-brand, they may not have that additive, and you may be paying a little less for it, but you're not getting the assurances of some of the top line brands. That's what I've always been told.
And it's one thing to jump in on that is now would ethanol have, since you have ethanol now, do you have the risk of that freezing as much as the regular straight fuel without ethanol? I mean, I'm not an ethanol fan by any means, but would the ethanol keep it from freezing?
My answer to that would be, when's the last time you saw a frozen gas line?
Exactly.
Does diesel fuel still freeze?
Diesel fuel, good one.
Yeah, remember that used to
diesel
freeze
fuel.
all the time. Yeah.
Diesel fuel, you use additive in diesel fuel.
Right.
That True Blue or whatever that stuff is that.
So that'll prevent it from
DEF.
freezing. Okay.
But diesel fuel.
So you treat
totally
diesel fuel,
different.
right?
It's not refined nearly as much. That's another thing I've been told. I can't understand why they charge more for diesel fuel, considering it isn't refined as much.
You're right. Yeah,
Someone's
you're right.
making
Exactly
a lot of
right.
money. That's what it is. Someone's making big bucks.
It's not me.
Yeah, it's not us here. That's why we're doing this show here.
Exactly.
Now, here's the other, probably
I
most
love
important
doing this
question
show.
of
It
the
doesn't
night.
care about the money.
Did you get a deer yet, Carl?
Yes, I did. Larry, I got a deer a month ago with a bow. I was very fortunate.
With your car? Oh, with a bow. Okay.
No, with a bow. Did you notice I did say bow?
Yeah.
Did you have a crossbow or
A crossbow with those rage, those 3-bladed rage mechanical tips. One shot, and he only ran about 30 yards. That was it.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So,
you must have had a good shot on him.
Larry, you got any more questions for Carl while we wrap up the show here?
I just want to remind everybody that the longest running local car show, well over 30 plus years, is on 570 WKVN every Saturday morning from 8 to 10 with Carl Slagle and Jim Gahagan. They're truly the heroes. They solve problems for the local people. They save money and they give good advice. They're my buddies, and I admire them.
Yeah.
And I look forward to listening each and every Saturday.
Yes, so that's
Thank you
for Carl for all these years of giving information on providing the public with information on how to take care of their own cars and what to look out.
A long time. Yeah.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys. I do appreciate it. I appreciate you guys.
And you know what? If you
we can talk
Rick.
another hour to you, Carl. You know,
Yeah, well,
so many
I know. I enjoy doing this. This is fun.
Yeah,
this is a lot of fun. I really do enjoy it.
that's why we're going to have you back on, because you know what? I had a list
This
of
is what,
questions
the
here. I
third
didn't even
time?
start.
Is this the third time we've had you on, Carl?
I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so. Yes.
Well, if we could get this thing built with TJ, I think Carl would be an excellent person up on the panel along with TJ, because of the strength of your word and your commitment, and the longevity that you've had in the radio business is extraordinary.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, we're working. We got something in the works for you, hopefully for the audience here. Any
great.
questions
We'll
or
talk.
any
That'll
questions
come
or comments on, if you want to email armstrongstreetscene@gmail.com. I'm sure we're going to get blasted with opinions, and we'll address
That's
those.
good
We'll
stuff.
address them in the
That's
next
what it's
episode.
about.
That's
Sure.
fine.
That's what it's all about.
We want to hear your feedback
Yes.
on this, and
If-
thank you to
if-
Carl Slagle for joining us
we're
again.
Wrong, if we're wrong, it's Carl's fault. If we're right, it's
That's
ours.
right.
Yes.
I accept
Okay.
full responsibility.
Oh, good. Okay. The next show we'll hear about that one. So thank you for Carl Slagle joining us.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very
Happy
much.
Happy
Larry
Thanksgiving,
Ward.
Carl.
Same to
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving, Larry Ward, Rick Ferreira. I'm Greg Roten. We will see you
down